Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our monthly outreach webinar series. And today's topic is underwater analog space missions and research. And to talk particularly on this topic, today among us, we have Dr. Miroslava Rozlonsky. He is an environmental physiologist and has been teaching hyperbaric medicine and diving physiology at the Faculty of Medicine, University at Ostrava. He has led and participated in several research expeditions, including the Under the Pole 2 expedition in Greenland. He focuses on his research on the effect of cold on a diverse cognitive functions. Recently, he has been involved in space analog mission research and became an astronaut by joining the Hydronaut project as a crew member in Underwater Scientist during Mission 2. Besides that, he is a flight planner for the Austrian Space Forum AMIDI 20 analog Mars mission and participated in several analog missions organized by Habitat Marte. He is also a scuba diving instructor and Dan Europe Area Director for Slovakia. With this, I welcome you, sir, and I hand it over to you. You can go ahead and start with the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Ruchira. It is really nice for very nice, kind words. Despite we have a virtual meeting, I would like to to welcome everybody and to thank you for finding your time and joining me during my presentation. I know that it's evening for some of us. For some of us, it's maybe early morning. But I'm definitely glad that you were able to make it here. So without any further hesitancy, I will continue with my presentation. I'm sorry that for whatever technical reasons, I cannot put it in presenter's mode, so I will need to do it like that. But yeah, that's the life of analog astronauts. You know, we have a lot of problems during the mission, so we need to solve them. So it's part of that, and we need to troubleshoot it somehow. So let's start. As it is mentioned, I will be talking today about underwater analog space missions, about the missions I participated in, and also maybe to outline the future of this area, because it's sort of, let's say, very niche, I would say, compared to the other surface-based mission. But yeah, let's talk about that later on. Yeah, a second. Okay, so few words about myself, just on top of what Ruchira already said. As it was said, I'm environmental physiology. So my let's say my way to analog space mission was a little bit different. I started in diving and then switched also to the space. Actually, my experience in diving and my expertise of being in extreme environments and being able to conduct the research over there, especially underwater, as it was mentioned, for example, during the Under the Pole mission, where we did research on divers while diving below the sea ice. Just for you to have an idea how it's to dive below sea ice. If you dive below sea ice, the water temperature is something like minus 2 degrees Celsius, what is really demanding. So, you know, to do something like that, you really need to plan everything properly and to be on safe side, because also, let's say, your capabilities to rescue someone in such conditions are, let's say, slightly limited. Yeah, so this basically brought me to the area of underwater analog space missions. I joined the Hydronaut project like 2 years ago, and since then I'm collaborating with them on different missions at a different positions, starting from a scientist through Aquanaut, ending as a part of the Mission Control Center. As it was mentioned, I am also involved in some surface-based analogs, like, for example, I was flight planner for AMIDI 20, which took place last year in Negev Desert in Israel, where I was flight planner, as I said. Of course, Habitat Marte, I'm joining them rather virtually, but yeah, let's see, maybe we also have option to meet in person. Yeah, in terms of my presence in the world, yeah, mostly you can find me in Slovakia and the Czech Republic, because I'm teaching hyperbaric medicine at the Faculty of Ostrava, Faculty of Medicine, Ostrava University in Czech Republic. And yeah, you know, as an aquanaut / analog astronaut, we also need to have some technical expertise. And for me, I got the unique opportunity to join one very specific project dedicated to development of a VEX-based hybrid rocket fuel. This was the ESA-funded project in Slovakia, And I'm quite proud that our project was very successful. And in April this year, we were able to perform full-scale hot fire tests. And as you can see in the picture in the middle, yeah, it was quite big engine with a lot of raw fumes and also a lot of power and excitement on our side being in a bunker. So that's about me in a nutshell. And let's have a look on the space. So when we talk about the space, of course, everybody knows that we will have definitely like two or three, let's say three major issues or problems which we need to solve. One, of course, is a technical, but as we can see, we are progressing quite well. And actually, Artemis mission is just about to be launched and to again establish presence of humankind on the moon. Of course, in terms of biological challenges, we are mostly talking about impacts of radiation and microgravity, but these I really believe can be addressed with some technological means. And of course, we also have quite a lot of information in this regard. What is really, let's say, still not fully understood is the effect of isolation and other psychological issues, which of course will have also tremendous impact on a crew, on their performance. Just maybe to highlight what I meant with this small introduction is that when we talk about let's say ISS or International Space Station, to return to the Earth in terms of, or in case of any, let's say, medical issues, it will take you probably some hours to get to the Earth surface and to be rescued and to get the best medical care possible. When we go to Moon, of course, this interval will be prolonged, and we probably will talk about the days which will be time to rescue. And of course, if we go to Mars, yeah, probably we are talking about no rescue options, because obviously the flight duration will be quite long, and options to return someone to the really specialized medical care on Earth will be extremely limited. And of course, this will create a different kind of psychological load, and this we need to investigate. And to do so, we are using so-called space analogs. I'm explaining quite in broad because I have seen in the audience that there are also some people probably not fully involved in space missions or analog space missions. So I apologize to those who are very familiar with that, but yeah, it's for educational purposes of the other participants. So analog space missions are basically conducted in habitats which are usually located in so-called ice environment, or this isolated, confined, and extreme environment. And of course, this means that they should be somehow in remote areas. So most frequently, we can find them in either deserts or in some lava fields or lava tubes, but also in areas like polar regions, like, for example, Concordia Station of European Space Agency, for example. And of course, the most challenging environment what we can see, or we can find on Earth, is being underwater. So we also see several underwater analogs where we conduct analog space missions. Maybe the question, why underwater? Yeah, because the underwater world and living underwater is very comparable to the space conditions, especially when we go outside the habitat. For example, if we go outside the habitat, we can really change our gravity and our perception of gravity, and we can really adjust the gravity of an aquanaut or astronaut to be like the same gravity like on the moon or on Mars, for example. Of course, being or living underwater is very complex, and this means that you really need to have a complex structure, including life support systems, but also like mission control center and some other parts. What is important to highlight here is that in underwater habitats, they are built in a way that you don't have direct access to the surface and direct access to emergency. What is very similar what I just explained about the space mission. And of course, there is also another feature related to underwater habitats, because naturally they have slightly elevated level of CO2 inside of the habitat, which is also very similar to to the space conditions, especially, for example, for ISS, where the astronauts also can encounter some effects from hypercapnia. So therefore, underwater analog space mission, underwater habitats are considered as a high fidelity space analogs, and a lot of astronauts have been trained in underwater habitats before they went to space. Yeah, so maybe you're asking how comes that from underwater we cannot go directly to the surface? It's because in underwater habitats we are using so-called saturation diving principles. What is saturation diving? I don't know how many of you are divers, but just briefly and really on a basic level, when you dive, when you go in depth, you start to absorb inner gases. Of course, going to surface, you need to get rid of them. So this process is called on-gassing and off-gassing. And at some point, it depends on the depth, it depends on the time spent in the depth. The process of off-gassing starts to be much longer than your dive duration, and of course, it becomes impractical. In commercial diving, it was discovered that if you spend certain amount of time at certain depth, your body becomes fully saturated of the inner gas, and basically at the end of the exposure, you just need to make one decompression. And this principle is basically called saturation diving. Saturation diving allows you to really spend days, weeks, and a really long time at a certain depth with the need only and with only one decompression needed at the end. Such strategies are well, let's say, employed in a commercial diving. We see it quite frequently in a lot of locations, and really divers are very operational and can reach quite significant depth and perform the work over there. So this is the principle we also use in our underwater analog space missions. When we look on the habitats, currently there are 3 operational habitats in the world. One is two of them are located in ocean. One is in sweet water. So in ocean we recognize Aquarius underwater habitat, or sometimes also called Nemo, which is located in Florida, and also there is another habitat called Jules. It's also in Florida. Both of them are fixed, so they cannot move. They are fixed to the seabed, and they are multi-compartment. This is different to one located in sweet water, the hydronaut or deep lab habitat, which is mobile and basically can be moved from one place to another, and it also can change the depth. Of course, to be mobile, it means that you are smaller, and the hydronaut is relatively small compared to the other habitats, and let's say the living area is something not more than 10 square meters. So in terms of operational depth, Aquarius stays, I mean, the storage depth for aquanauts is roughly 13 meters. For hydronaut, it can change, but currently we are using the depth around between 7 to 9 meters. Jules is specific because it's relatively shallow. The saturation, or let's say that the storage depth is 6.4 meters, what means that this is the depth which doesn't require decompression. So basically from Jules you can escape, but still it was used for several missions, several analog space missions, and it's a valid habitat which can be used. In terms of crew size, of course, both of them located in the ocean can accommodate something like 6 participants. In hydronaut, the maximum is 3 participants. And of course, in all habitats, you can perform AVA, so you can perform extravehicular activities to mimic some space-related activities. From decompression point of view, I mentioned in Jules is not required. For Aquarius, it's quite a long one because it's relatively deep, and it takes something like 14 to 18 hours. It's usually done in the right condition inside the Aquarius habitat, where they have a special compartment where they decompress and then they just escape using the standard scuba gear. In hydronaut, we mostly do decompression in a wet condition, so we need to stay wet or to stay outside the habitat for decompression, and yeah, it lasts something between 2 to 4 hours. I'm quite proud to say that during this mission we were able to change it somehow, and now we also consider like semi-dry version where we some time of the decompression spend in a habitat and the rest in the water. Yeah, so being underwater has also a lot of like positive aspects for the research. Being underwater, it also means that you have limited access to the sunlight, so you can also mimic different daylight cycles, and you can really mimic like space conditions where, for example, on ISS, you have a sunset and sunrise every 90 minutes, but also has some impact on your physiology. As I already said, we also have elevated carbon dioxide inside these habitats, what is also quite significant factor influencing your capabilities, mental performance, but also your comfort to some extent. Of course, being underwater, it also means that the water is usually cooler, and you can also play with the effect of the cold, so you can really make it very complex. Of course, you can also make it very complex in a way that you provide a special food and a special means of hygiene being underwater. What is the most ultimate challenge for underwater missions, I would say, is to introduce communication delays. Because as you know, if we go to another planetary bodies or another space objects, there will be some communication delays, and this really impairs communications and all the operational activities significantly. Yeah, for example, in our last AMADE missions, where we had communication delays on the surface, it was something like 10 minutes for one-way communication. So 10 minutes delay for one-way communication. So it took 20 minutes, to ask the question and to get a response. So you can imagine it's very, very challenging. Maybe you are asking, so how comes that Slovakia or Czechoslovakia is so involved in underwater habitats? Yeah, it's because we have a heritage. We were actually the third country. I mean, I was born in Czechoslovakia. Of course, now we don't have any more Czechoslovakia because we divided into the Czech Republic and Slovak Republic. But yeah, I still have some, I still like to consider Czechoslovakia as a part of underwater world, and yeah, in Czechoslovakia we performed a special. I mean, there was a special program in Czechoslovakia in 17th last century where they focused on underwater habitats. And as you can see in the picture, this is the picture from one of the most ultimate missions performed at that time, where two divers spent 100 hours in 25 meters of depth. It was done in quarry in a very cold condition. It was November. In our condition in inland country in Slovakia or Czechoslovakia, usually in November you have very cold temperatures, and at that time the temperature was something like 4 degrees Celsius. So habitat was equipped, and they spent 100 hours inside. The habitat is still present. You can still dive in case you are interested. It's in one of the quarries in one of the lakes in Czech Republic. So this is our heritage, and doing this, I mean, performing this mission, Czechoslovakia became the third country in the world which performed underwater stay. So yeah, it was quite significant achievement at the time. Nowadays, we have a new habitat which is located in Czech Republic. It's called Hydronaut, and the habitat itself, it's called Deep Lab Habitat. The project is co-funded or was co-funded by European Space Agency via Business Incubation Center in Prague. The habitat you can see on the picture. So we have the main container, main vessels is the white part, where we have a crew living inside. And of course, we have a ballast tanks, which are these yellow structures on the side of the habitat, which we use to adjust the buoyancy and to adjust the depth of the habitat. The habitat is entered from the bottom, so there is a manhole from the bottom going up, and the habitat is relatively small. As I said, the living area is something like 10 square meters, and inside diameter is the diameter of the vessel is 2.5 meters and the length is something like 5 meters. So altogether it's something like 20-25 cubic meters of the living space. Of course, inside we have all connectivity, so all Wi-Fi's, we have computers, different kind of sensors, crew is monitored by cameras. On surface, as you can see on the picture below, we have a motherboard, which is used to provide, all connectivity, all energies, and also life support. And basically, during the mission, the whole habitat is just immersed in the water, and the mothership stays on the surface. So how it looks like inside. So this is the entry, how you enter the habitat. As I said, it's a manhole. It's relatively thin. The diameter is something like 90 centimeters, so you cannot be too much fat to be able to enter it. If you enter, then on one side you see the beds which we are using, and also the living area with some, like tables and toilet, etc. And opposite side, you can see on the picture on the right side, you see the computers and sensors and all the electrical power supplies, etc., which is used to power the habitat. Of course, the whole activities underwater needs to be monitored very closely. And on surface, we have Mission Control Center, where we monitor divers. So we use the telemetry system, which basically monitors the vital signs of divers. We also monitor inner atmosphere in terms of like temperature, humidity, CO2 level, oxygen level, etc. And of course, we also control what they do on computers, and we can run different tests on them, psychological, physiological, whatever. Of course, we also need to communicate with them, and we have a special program which is used like for planning of daily activities, and also it shows the actual data from the habitat. So we have all information in one place. We also gather all information in one place. So it's quite sophisticated system, which is really helping us in our daily life, both being an aquanaut and also being part of the Mission Control Center. Yeah, for supporting divers underwater, of course, we need to use different approaches. So first, we have a special container which is used to transfer like food or water or some other stuff to them. And of course, we also need a lot of safety divers helping, to supply and to operate the habitat. Yeah, you can see on the picture on the right side, different setups are used for communication, like for example, full face masks and so on. And of course, the water where the habitat is located is quite cold, so dry suit is basically mandatory equipment for you. Of course, keeping an eye on safety. The site is equipped with hyperbaric chamber, and many of crew members are familiar, and there are hyperbaric chamber operators. So in case of any troubles, either to safety divers or to aquanauts, of course, we can immediately start treatment and help them in case of emergency. Yeah, so just some words about the activities. So Habitat was initially used in 2020 during the Mission 1, where 2 divers spent 170 hours underwater, so this is roughly like 7 days. And this mission was dedicated to demonstrate capability and to test all life support systems in a way that we can see that Habitat is operational. And by the way, on the picture below, this guy in the middle, or let's say on the left side, his name is Matthias, and he's the founder of the whole project. So the whole idea about the Hydronaut project and DeepLab was his idea, and basically he designed everything by himself. And yeah, from this enthusiasm, it became really the valid project for European Space Agency. It's quite amazing story. The second mission I was participating in was carried out in 2021, and the scope of the mission was science on board. So this was the aim of the mission was to demonstrate the diversity of experiments we can carry out on board of the habitat. And this was basically my role, being a scientist underwater and perform all the experiments. We did quite a lot of experiments, like focus on microbiological contamination, on telemedicine. We also performed psychological experiments with our partners from Israel, and I personally was also studying effects of hypercapnia and cold on our cognitive function performance. We spent 43.5 hours underwater from planned 48 hours. The mission was shortened because really the harsh environmental conditions. As you can see, the surrounding temperature was 7 degrees Celsius, and inside habitat we have a 12 degrees Celsius with 100% humidity. This was really harsh, and yeah, it was not so easy to bury it and to sustain. So for safety reasons, the mission was shortened, and we came to surface after 43.5 hours. The last, yeah, just maybe a few pictures from the mission. As I said, we did different experiments, biomedical ones. We also tested, like, for example, remote stethoscope. So the stethoscope, which we use underwater and was connected to the surface, where the doctor was able to hear, all the sounds, like, like from lungs, for example, or peristaltics, etc. During the mission, we performed also AVA, so extravehicular activity. This was done in a standard format for commercial divers, so with a hard helmet. And yeah, one of the crew members went outside and was simulating technical inspection of the whole habitat. You can see the water conditions outside. As I said, the water was very cold, just 7 degrees Celsius. And the visibility was also not very good, reaching something like 1 meter of visibility at that time. Our last mission happened actually like 10 days ago, and yeah, it ended at 26th of August. This was a very complex mission, organized and supported by different partners. So first, it was supported by Technological Agency of Czech Republic, and we had different universities like Czech Technical University and other like Faculty of Acrobiology, which were participating. And the main scope or main driver for the mission was Department of Psychology from the Palacký University in Czech Republic, where they used the habitat and the whole project to create the tool for diagnostics of or to create the tool which will help in future to choose the right crew for such missions. And yeah, so let's have a look on this one. This mission was very complex. We had actually like two missions, or let's say 2 separated habitats. One was located on surface. This is the one in the container, which you can see, where we had like 3 crew members located inside. Of course, they were inside, so we're not able to go outside. Also, the windows were blinded in a way that it was really simulated, like simulated habitat. This habitat floating on the surface was considered as the mothership, as an orbital module simulating the flight to the moon. Yeah, I forgot to mention that the mission scenario was flight to the moon. So the surface container was orbital module orbiting the lunar surface, and underwater we had 3 aquanauts who were simulating the landing module, and of course the landing on the moon, and also performing some AVA's activities. I'm quite proud that we defeated the Sean, the mascot for the European Space Agency, for the Artemis mission, because yes, while ship Sean is still waiting for her flight around the moon, we already landed there. So yeah, we are quite proud of us. Of course, I'm a little bit exaggerating. Just to show you how the conditions underwater were during this mission, it will be shown in a second on this video, where you will be able to see a diver's point of view on trying to find special samples. There was a mission scenario which is evolving during the mission, and for example, in this relation, initially the aquanauts were landing with a drone on the moon. Of course, there were some technical issues and they crashed the drone, and then of course the mission scenario continued in a way that one of the aquanauts needed to go outside and to recover the sample. So now during this AVA, he's simulating the sample recovery, and let's have a look on that. So you can see probably that it was dark, it was visibility not very great, and now he recovered the sample. So yeah, you already see that it was very, very difficult, but all the aquanauts were professional commercial divers, so it was within their scope of the work. During the mission, we also had a greenhouse on the board of the Habitat, where we had different sprouts, and it was the experiment run by Agrobiological Institute. Of course, we also had a lot of outreach activities. For example, we had a special session dedicated for children, and it was very nice because, as you can see on the picture, relatively small children were asking very simple questions to aquanauts, like, for example, what is habitat? And aquanauts needed to describe what is it, and it was very nice, and I really believe that it will gain a lot of social media publicity in close future, because these are really amazing videos. And and also we had one international call from all our habitats with Habitat Marte, and because there was another mission performing parallel. It was in Habitat Marte, it was virtual mission, and all virtual analog astronauts and all our analog astronauts, including Mission Control Center and myself, we did a presentation of all habitats, and we explained everything, and it was very fruitful discussion lasting something about 1 hour, and was very, very nice to meet really internationally, because if I'm not wrong, we were like 7 nationalities present, so it was really international call. So the mission ended after 167 hours and 26 minutes. So roughly after a week, all crew members were recovered safe on board. And as I said, I'm quite proud that I was able to adjust the decompression schedule in a way that the decompression was partially done inside the habitat, and then just really a small part outside the habitat in the water. And of course, we monitor everything. All the safety was the priority, and it was very, very successful. In terms of future of underwater analog missions, at least from my perspective, I really see the huge demand for really prolonged ones, lasting for several weeks, which of course will be very, very challenging for every habitat. Of course, there will be more complex, including communication delay, maybe even like limited supplies, so no direct supplies, just what you have inside. Of course, there is also room for in situ reutilization of different, for example, gases or water or some other media. And what is also important is that it's clear that nowadays in habitats we are using really very specialized crews, and these crews are either astronauts, like for example in Nemo, or commercial divers, like in our case, but those people are very special and very highly trained. Of course, when we talk about the psychological research on effects of isolated, confined, extreme environment, it's clear that we will need to have a different psychological profiles, and this basically opens the new room for optimizing how to select the right people, how to broaden the spectrum of participants in such missions. And this is not only about the selection criteria from either psychological or medical point of view, but also like from training perspective. And yeah, in this regard, I'm actively developing a special kind of training program which will be dedicated for aquanauts, for future aquanauts. So basically, I really aim to be able to provide specialized training to medium experienced divers who, after the training, might be able to participate in such missions and become real aquanauts and analog astronauts underwater. I carry out this activity under my Mironaut diving center, which is located in Slovakia. But of course, this training, once available, will be definitely international. So that's it from my end for now. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I also would be glad if you join me on the social media and follow up on the future progress and the future achievement in terms of analog space missions, either on surface or underwater. And yeah, to do so, you can simply you can simply find me under Mironaut on all social media. So that's it from my end, and now I'm open for your discussion, for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. It was amazing to learn about the underwater research that is being carried on. So with this, I request the participants to put their questions in the chat box, and I will read them out for them. While the participants do so, I have some questions for you. Um, First of all, you mentioned a number of times that you were a part of a high fidelity mission. So will you please explain for our participants who will be hearing this later on that what is the key difference between a low fidelity and a high fidelity analog space mission?
Yeah, so well, I start from the high fidelity. So in my understanding, high fidelity missions are the missions which are very complex, so mimicking all the aspects. As I showed in one of the pictures, really the space exploration and space missions are very complex, in terms of microgravity, let's say the surface support or air support, communication, etc. So more similar you are to such real space missions, these missions are called high fidelity. Of course, if you cover just some of the aspects, then you're probably rather low fidelity.
Right. Thank you for the answer. Second question I had was you're starting a new scuba diving program itself for aquanauts. So will you help emphasize why developing a skill set like scuba diving will help them to achieve a dream of becoming either an analog astronaut or say an astronaut? How will that help them?
Yeah, well, there are different, let's say, points of view on that. The first, once you are diving, and probably this is also my recommendation for the other analog astronauts, and I see there are also some diving schools in the audience, so probably they will agree with me. That once you become a diver, you start to think in different approach. You start to think about as in terms of light support, because going underwater means that you have limited supplies. You also have limited communication ability, etc. So basically, the proper scuba diving training will also enhance your let's say your capabilities as a normal astronaut. And of course, being able to participate in such underwater analog missions, as I demonstrated, it really requires to be experienced diver. And so this is the scope of this specialized training, really to be able to provide what is needed for those people who are interested in and who wants to participate. And of course, it will also help for their personal development in a normal life or in a business life.
Right. Thank you for the answer. Another question I had was, are there any research papers or any outreach material that has been produced by the hydronauts that people can later on go and visit?
Yeah, So in terms of research papers, yeah, we just finished the mission, and in optimistic scenario, it will take something like 9 months to 1 year to get the data published. So you should be patient on that. And in terms of social media, of course, there is a Hydronaut page on the LinkedIn, but you also can reach out to my Mironaut page, where I try to summarize, and not to be just single focus, but also to cover some other areas as well. So both can be used.
Sure, we'll keep an eye out for it. Apart from this, you were also a flight planner for Austrian Space Forum. So would you please describe your experience and what exactly you did as a flight planner during the mission?
Yeah. So yeah, first of all, I need to say it was very exciting experience. Because I don't know if you follow the Amade 20 mission, but it was very long mission. It lasted actually for 3 weeks, and we had like six analog astronauts locked inside the habitat for 3 weeks. And for me, it was really nice experience, because being part of Mission Control Center gave me, the first introduction of, I call it like backend office for the analog mission, where you are able to see, all the activities which you don't see on the camera, you don't see them, in the papers, and these activities are absolutely required and critical for a successful mission. So this was really, for me, first let's say, real touch and really real hands-on experience with such a complex analog mission, because this, I also need to say that Amade 20 was extremely complex. We had a lot of experiments running there, different kinds of experiments, and our role as a flight planners was to really to plan the daily activities, that we carry out all the experiments. We also give the time for astronauts, like, to relax and for their, the normal daily activities, and so on and so on. And I'm also glad that I have seen Karin Brunemann in the audience, who was also joining me in this mission. And yeah, maybe also Karin can say a word if needed on that.
Yes, I'm happy to. Hi, Miroslav. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Miroslav and I, we've been working very closely together on the flight planning team for the Amade 20 mission, and coordinating more than 20 scientific experiments during the mission. Was an exciting time to learn everything, what's going on behind the scenes, to cooperate with the science teams, with the principal investigators all over the world, again in a very high fidelity mission, where we had everything from spacesuit simulators to time delays. So that gave us a really great insight into the operation of such a mission. That was really fantastic.
That sounds amazing, and thank you for the input from your side. The last question from my side was, you also study hyperbaric medicine. So how can we use hyperbaric medicine in space analog research? Can you please give some insight on that?
Actually, there is a lot of connections, and let's say the most visible and most significant one relates to decompression, because, as you know, if astronauts go outside the spacecraft in the spacesuits, the pressure inside the spacesuits is lower than inside the spacecraft. So this means that they go from the environment, from the, let's say, the normal pressure environment to the low pressure environment, and this basically is the same process as we do as divers when we ascend to surface. So we go from higher to lower pressure, and therefore there is this similarity, and there was also a lot of activities in the past to optimize the process of AVAs, like in terms of oxygen pre-breathing before the going into the spacesuit, where divers were involved.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for presentation, Miroslav. It's very interesting. and I'm a sport instructor trainer in Turkey. We have a MOET project, Mars on Earth project. If have a permission, we want to contact with your studies. If you have a permission, we want to contact with you.
Yeah, please feel free. I just shared my my LinkedIn profile, and yeah, just reach me out there, and then we can continue from there.
Yes, thank you. And now is added in LinkedIn to you. Thank you very much, Miroslav.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Till how many distances covered by analog astronauts? Like if we go to if we go to more deeper heights like Maynard Trench, or then how many distance if we compare to Maynard Trench, or like is as compared to Maynard Trench, is possible like analog astronauts can go more deeper, or there is a scope?
Yeah, well, actually, in with the underwater analogs, we usually try to simulate these psychological aspects of, let's say, remote or delayed exit options. And as I demonstrated in one of the figures, you doesn't need to be extremely deep for that. We are really talking, we can start from, let's say, 7, 8, 9 meters of depth, where you already can get into saturation, and you can really experience this feeling that you cannot directly go to surface. So there is no need to go very deep. And of course, Mariana Trench is something extremely deep, where not so many people were present. And I really don't think that it's feasible to perform mission there.
And sir, one more question: how many species till now have been discovered by the analog astronauts or econauts?
I don't think this is the scope of the mission. So usually the scope is not to discover new species. These underwater analogs are usually, focused on different activities.
I guess there are none. So we'll conclude today's session. Thank you, Ms. Lovar, sir, for giving us such an insightful session, and thank you all for joining in. I'll be uploading the session, recorded session, on our YouTube channel, so you can revisit. And if you have any other further questions, you can mail us, and we'll forward it to sir, and then maybe he'll address them. Thank you all. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about our underwater adventures, and thank you to the audience for your attention.